seats and get comfortable. I have a feeling we're going to be here for a few minutes. First of all, we have to thank some of our co-sponsors tonight. If it wasn't for them, this evening would not be possible. As you can see behind me, the Ojai Valley Green Coalition, the Ojai Valley Women's Club, Ventura, Friends of the Ventura River, and the Ojai Valley Democratic Club was nice enough to help sign so we could get the needed insurance that we needed to have the building tonight. Thank you very much. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. I also want to thank Nordhoff High School, my esteemed alma mater, for having us in here tonight. And specifically to Dr. Roger Phelps for putting all the audio-visual equipment together. Our event co-sponsors again.
Thank you. You can't see me here, but I'm over in the corner. Thank you.
And I'd like to start out, of course it's a little dark in here, but I wanted to start out with just a little bit of interactiveness. I have a question for everybody, and if you would please, I promise it'll be the last time, if you could stand up real quickly. If everybody who has a Golden State Water bill, if you could stand up. We're doing a little straw poll tonight, all right? Now I'm going to start out. For those of you on your bi-monthly bill who are paying less than $50, under $50, would you sit down? Under 50? All right, how about under $100? If you're paying under $100 on your bi-monthly bill, would you sit down? Wow. All right, how about $200? If you're paying under $200 on your bi-monthly bill, would you sit down? All right, I see a few people finally sitting down. Man, all right, how about $300? If you're paying under $300, would you sit down? Wow, I'm looking, that's 50, 30, 50%. All right, $400. That last bill was under $400, that bi-monthly bill. Would you sit down? Oh, man. All right, I may have to get up to 1,000. I didn't know I needed a comma to do this. How about $500? If you're paying less than $500, sit down. All right, $600? Wow. All right, I won't make the rest of you stand up and let all your neighbors know just how bad it is. All right, thank you very much. Now, you all sit down. Thank you. I'm going to ask one more thing, but you don't have to stand up. Anybody who's out there who has written a letter to the editor, who has written a letter to the PUC, who has gotten involved in this other than signing our petition or putting up a sign or donating money, if you've done anything outside of that, would you raise your hand? All right. Thank you to those people. Those people are what keeping this going. All right? I didn't see enough hands, though. At the end of the night, everybody's going to raise their hand. They're going to go out of here, and they're going to be the people who are raising their hand next time we have this meeting, when we stand up and we say, raise your hand if you're happy we got rid of Golden State Water. All right. What you see behind me is a list of the things we're going to go through tonight. I talk fast, and I hope that we can get through this quickly so we can have plenty of question and answers when the time comes. We want to make sure that every question you have is answered. If we happen to run out of time later tonight, I insist that you let us know, and we will come to your house, we'll have coffee, we will do what we need to do to answer your questions. If there's something we can't answer tonight, we'll find the answer and get it to you. When we do get to the question and answer period, and we'll explain this again later, we're going to have people sit down over here. As the line gets to about 5 people left, we're going to have you come over, sit down, and come up to this microphone and ask your question when the time comes. We'll be there eventually, I promise. What we're going to go through tonight. First off, who are these biased Ojai FLOW people? For those of you who don't know, Golden State Water started their smear campaign. The first thing they started was saying the people in Ojai FLOW are biased. We're bad. We're part of an evil organization trying to take over the world. Unfortunately, that's not true. We'll go through that. Next, why do we want to get rid of Golden State Water? Okay? Some of you may think that's an easy answer. For some of you, we're going to delve into it a little bit more. What is the plan? What is going on? Why are we here? What are we trying to get done? What is eminent domain condemnation? Now, I want to start this out because Golden State's attorney was in town. He likes calling it condemnation. Ooh, condemnation. Truth is, it's also called eminent domain. Those words mean the same thing. Eminent domain sounds prettier. Condemnation sounds like a dilapidated house that somebody's running over with a bulldozer. That's not what we're doing here. Where are we with the plan? Where are we at? What about Golden State Water's claims? Richard Hages, to my right, is going to come up and address all of those claims that they made directed at him for the feasibility study he put together, and he wants to get his chance to explain where they are wrong. And lastly, and most importantly, how we need your help. We're going to get there, and I promise you, we're going to be asking you to do very, very little compared to what some of us have done. But we need everybody to do a little bit, as everybody knows the way you get something like this done is everybody pitches in a little. Some people pitch in more, but everybody's got to help. All of those hands need to be raised the next time I ask the question, who has sent letters? All right, so who is Ojai FLOW? We're going to make this real simple. Those are the names of everybody in Ojai FLOW. Those are the names of the people I want to thank specially. If you don't know who these people are, you probably know somebody who knows them. We all live in this community. We're all part of this town. And frankly, we are staking our reputations and our livelihoods in this town to tell you that we are not biased and leading you down a path that's going to end badly. We did our homework. We did our research. We aren't experts. We aren't claiming to know everything. But I guarantee you, we are all in this for one reason, to make Ojai better for all of us. None of us have anything individually to gain out of this any different than anybody else in here. A lower water bill and a safer, stronger community moving forward to the future. So with that, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Ryan Blatz. I work with the Blatz Law Firm here in town. Pat McPherson owns a business in Carpinteria, is also a member of our community, lives in town. Bob Daddy, who's unable to make it tonight, State Farm insurance salesman from Ojai. Richard Hages, former general manager at Casitas, expert in all things water, managed many water company in his day, member of this community right here. Dale Hansen, real estate agent in town, member of this community. Lou Torres, certified public accountant, a member of this community. And Stan Green, currently on the Sanitation District Board, and maybe the most eloquent speaker I heard at the public meeting by Golden State the other week. That's us. If you think we're biased, run us out of town. We're here. I'm not chained down. We're here because we believe that we can make Ojai better for the future, and I'm telling you, there is no single monetary or otherwise aspect of this community that is as important as this. Not only are we talking about the most precious of natural resources, we are talking about tons of money that we are losing because of this. It's not right, it's not fair. Damn it, we're standing up, we're going to do something about it. I also want to give a special thanks, as I said, to Dr. Roger Phelps, really, for putting all this together. He did a great job. John Whaley, who wrote an absolutely amazing letter to the editor that was in today's Ojai paper. John, I don't know how you got 5 columns in the letter to the editor section, but I love it. Christine Fay, who was essential in helping us organize the petitions that I know most of you in here signed. She gets a special thanks. Nicholas Sommer, who is our webmaster, who's back in Germany right now. He is still working diligently to make sure Ojai FLOW website stays up. As I say that, ojaiflow.com, make sure you check it out. Resource page has everything you need to know. We don't just say it, we post it, and you can look it up. That being said, all the signature gatherers and all those people who volunteered or donated, thank you very much. The petitioning went great. Thank you, really, thank you. All right, with that being said, and now you know I'm not biased, let us move forward. All right, the first question that I want to address is one of the essential questions. Most important when we started looking into this issue is why get rid of Golden State Water? And I boiled it down to really 2 simple aspects, and we'll go through each one. And I know everybody in here is pissed off about the water rates. I know they don't like what they're seeing. But at the same time, I want you to know that this meeting tonight is not just about water rates. It's about how we're going to deal with the situation. We can sit in here for 3 hours and scream and yell about what we're paying, or we can make sure we focus on what we need to do to move forward and get out of this. But that doesn't mean we don't need to discuss it a little bit. So I will go through a little bit. So you can see up here I have cost of service, which are the water rates. But if you ask Golden State Water, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, why are the water rates so high? They say, well, it's because of the cost of service. Well, obviously, that doesn't help. Locally owned versus corporate owned. We're going to go through some of the benefits and aspects of that. Lastly, the most important, why we want to get rid of the Golden State Water. It's not because they're a bad company, and I can tell you a lot of bad things they've done, but frankly, the rules are the rules, and they play by the rules. They maximize what they do. What is important, and I want this to be a focus point of tonight, is we want out of the Public Utility Commission system. For those of you who don't know, I'll talk about it a little bit more as we go on, but the problem in Ojai isn't because Golden State Water is an evil empire. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. The employees of Golden State Water, they're good people. They're our neighbors. I have nothing against the employees there. I have nothing against some of the executives there. They do their job based on what the system set out for them to do. They play the rules to the maximum. I always say you can't blame the guy for playing by the rules, but if we can find a new game, we're changing courts. We want out of the PUC system. So when they say the cost of service is too high, what exactly does that mean? Well, it comes from the great question that we ask. Why are Golden State's rates so high? The answer Golden State likes to give us is, well, they're set by the PUC, and they're based on the cost of service. Okay, well, that doesn't get us anywhere, thank you. Well, why is the cost of service so high? That's the real question. Well, for that they say, that's how much it costs to provide water. Well, I don't know if that's exactly how much it costs them to provide water. The PUC says it does, but I know that it sure doesn't equate to how much everybody else costs to provide water. The other local water purveyors don't simply cost as much to provide water. I've talked with the people at Casitas. I've been in meetings with them. They constantly wonder, how come it costs Golden State Water so much more to pump it straight out of the ground and send it out to everybody in Ojai when it costs Casitas so much less to have a reservoir, pump it out of the ground, send it 500 feet uphill, all the way to the east end of Ojai, and they can still do it for less? Because of the PUC system. Now they also argue other water purveyors are subsidized by taxes, so their cost of service is less. That's true. They aren't subsidized by taxes. But guess what? We already pay property taxes to Casitas, so why not get water from them? Essentially, we already pay to subsidize Casitas, but we don't get water from them. That extra money, we're already paying it anyway. You might not realize it, but the real cost of service to you is not only what Golden State Water is charging you, but the additional amount you're paying to Casitas, because they are our backup plan. When we need extra water, they buy it from them. But we won't see any tax increase if we switch over to Casitas as our water purveyor. We would be paying the same amount already. So when they tell us it's subsidized, who cares? The other thing is, other water agencies aren't subsidized by taxes, and yet their cost of service is significantly less. Ventura River Water District just put out a memo that said that their water is the cheapest in the area. Casitas, second cheapest. Now, Casitas is subsidized, but Ventura River isn't. Why do they have so much more ability to get it done for less? It's simple. It's in bold. It's all capitals. They aren't under the PUC system. We want to opt out. All right. So what about locally owned versus corporate owned? The first aspect, and you can see as I have three, is the PUC, corporation's duty to shareholders, and locally elected officials. First of all, the PUC, and as you probably learned, this isn't going to go real well for them. The PUC, if you don't already know, is the panel that decides on rate increases, annually or biannually or every 3 or 4 years, depending on exactly how they want to go about it. Golden State Water sends a memo up to the PUC and says, we want a rate increase. There is a case involved with that. They look at how much has been invested in the system and decide how much their rate can increase. This formula tends to make them increase their rate base for a larger profit. It's that simple. They get 8 to 10% back, according to the PUC, based on their rate base, which is the total aggregate amount of their investment in the system minus depreciation. As you can see, the rules are set up that the more they spend, the more they make. It's not an efficient system. It doesn't work. It ends up with rates that are 2 to 3 times the other purveyors. It just simply doesn't work. We want out. A rate advocate works to protect our interests. There's one rate advocate who covers all of Region 1. They have a few different attorneys in their office. Their job is to present the case why we should not have rate increases. They are fighting for us. They aren't very good. They're undermanned. They're understaffed. Logan Hall from the Ojai Valley News is here. He's been dealing with the PUC Public Advisor Office. They pretty much told him, pound sand. It's the Public Advisor Office. Their job is only to deal with the public. They have no money, they have no funding, they aren't helpful. We want out of the PUC system. Golden State Water's total requested increases are generally not approved, but they generally are approved to a certain amount. To give you an example, last time Ojai was very successful in the decision on the rate case. This happened last year. We had a public meeting in Ojai. I've read the decision that came down. It cites individuals who are in this room for standing up at that meeting and changing some of the rules of the PUC. We got a successful meeting. We got what we wanted. We did some difference. The rate increase was 26%. 26% off of success. Just this last week, Ojai, as one of only 4 communities who have officially intervened into the rate case, were denied a public hearing this go-around. Some 10 or 12 other locales were approved for public meetings. The answer the PUC gave a local media member was, we have no specifics. We are not doing enough. We've asked the city to get involved, and for the first time, as far as I know, the city has officially intervened. They specifically requested a public hearing in Ojai. We didn't get one. Nobody knows why yet. We're still trying to figure it out. But I know this. After tonight, there's going to be enough letters coming out of this room. There's people who's going to be telling people, telling their neighbors, telling their friends to write letters, and we are going to get that public meeting here. We are going to get a chance to stand up to the PUC and say, we don't want your rate increase, and you can't ignore us anymore. But we all got to pitch in. Duty to shareholders. Public water utilities have no duty to shareholders. Private companies have a duty to make as much money as possible. Golden State, as a corporation, has a duty to make as much money for their shareholders as possible, and this relates to what I call constant manipulation of the PUC rules to maximize rate increases. Some people might go, Ryan, how do you know? How do you know they're really manipulating the numbers and trying to build it up? Well, we've been saying it. This last year, the Water and Audits Department of California determined that Golden State Water had been robbing us. If those of you don't know this, what they found out after Golden State Water finally admitted to it was that they had been overcharging for infrastructure projects to the extent of $12+ million with one company. One company who did infrastructure projects for Golden State Water overcharged fair market value to $12 million. $12 million. Ojai's cut of that money was determined to be $1.2 million. We have far less than 10% of the people in the region, yet we were given 10% of the money because that's how much they stole from us by taking jobs that cost too much. Now, why would you do that? Why, if you run a company, would you ever pay more to do something you can get done for less? The PUC system rewards them for getting more investment, for charging more, for paying more into the system. They get a larger return on their investment. So they had a company who was essentially inflating the bills, running them up to the tune of $12 million. They were building it into their rate base and taking money for it. Finally, they admitted it. They fired some people. Great. It took them like 8 years to finally get it to the point where they decided to pay us any of the money back. So don't have to believe me. This is what they do. This is why the numbers are so high, and the PUC isn't protecting us. We want out of the PUC system. Locally elected officials. Casitas works to maximize efficiency and not profit. Now, that doesn't mean there's not a bottom line, and it doesn't mean they don't have to end up in the black every year. But they don't have a dividend that goes out. As John Whaley will tell you, and he wrote in the paper today, they don't get excited or write financial statements about how valuable different assets are and how they've gotten 45% more return like they have in Ojai or in their Golden State Water division over the last year. Casitas doesn't care about that. They just want to make sure that everybody gets the water they want and they make ends meet. There's not a profit-driven system. Nobody gets extra money at the end of the year if they make money or not. Everybody gets the same amount. It's a bad system for what we're talking about, and we want out. Board members at Casitas are elected. Obviously, we know what that means. You don't like them, you have an opportunity to do something about it. Ojai is already represented by a Casitas board member. In a little bit, I'll tell you who that is. We'll give you an address. We encourage you to start writing letters to the Casitas board. We want as much involvement in this as we can. We have been meeting with them. We are very excited about what they've been doing. We're very excited about the way they're looking at it because we know we're getting an honest look. I can't tell you where they're going to come down. They're not going to tell me. They're not going to tell anybody. But I can say this. They're looking at it. They're doing their due diligence. It's going to take a while. But they are putting an honest look into this. And they know we're for real. We're not going away. And if they do, you know, we have a chance to vote for somebody else, right? Money that goes to Casitas goes to the community, not to out-of-town shareholders. And again, the water and audit settlement. And this is an important factor when you talk about elected officials. I doubt many people in here even knew they had an elected official on the Casitas board. I doubt a lot of people in here have any idea what his name is, where he lives, whether or not you voted for him. You probably don't know. But I can guarantee you this. The Casitas board was our water purveyor, and they stole $1.2 million from us by overcharging on fake contracts or overvalued contracts. Wouldn't we hear about it? How many of you heard about the water and audit settlement? How many of you saw a newscast that said we were getting stolen $1.2 million out of our little community? Not very often. There would be a huge scandal if we found out public politicians were stealing money from us in this town. But they're a private investor-based company. It just kind of went away. It was an issue. It got in the paper. It's a big thing, but it's not the same as it would be if we could hold an individual accountable and elect him out and throw him out of office. Elected officials are more responsive than corporate overlords. I guarantee it. I promise it. It's true as you're seeing here as an example, and that's another added huge benefit to our community by having a system that is in our hands, that is back to being community-owned. So here we go. Here's a great cartoon that was in the Ojai Valley News about a week ago. It says, as you can see, if you can't see it, it says, "Hey Grandpa, it's almost Halloween. I wanted to put something really scary on the front door. I want to put something on the front door to really scare people." And Grandpa's sitting behind a desk and he looks over and says, "I'll print you some copies of my water bill." That's where we're at now. They're actually making cartoons how scary the water bills are. All right, so all of this is great. We all were here already probably, knowing we wanted to see what we could do about Golden State Water. What is the plan? What is going on? The summary of the plan is the same as it's always been. And some of this has already been completed. But for those of you who are at a meeting I did a number of months back at the Ojai Valley Inn, you'll see that our plan hasn't changed. Petition Casitas to create an improvement district of the area consisting of Golden State water users who will then vote for a bond to pay for an eminent domain purchase of the Golden State water system in Ojai. That's the plan. Thank you for the petitions. We've completed the first phase of our plan. We owe it to all of you who signed the petitions and helped gain signatures. Thank you again. Casitas took those very seriously, and so did a number of other politicians who sent them out to. Now we're at a new part, where we are also trying to help Casitas make an informed decision as to whether or not to proceed with eminent domain. We are working behind the scenes to supplement any information for them we can, to do whatever we can for them. We don't always know what it's going to mean, but we know we want to make sure that if they need something and we can help do it, we're going to do it. But we're not doing enough. We're helping put the carrot in front of them and helping them get all the information they need. But we're not pushing. We're not pushing enough. And that's where I'm going to ask you. You need to start writing the letters. We're going to give you the address. There's some templates on our website. Write your own letter. Put a stamp on it. Sign it in ink. Get those letters out and start pushing them to understand how important this is to you. If you don't know whether you're on our side or not, talk to us. Get the information, then write your letter. But make sure you're doing it, because that is the way we're going to get this done. We have to make sure we're pushing. I'm trying my hardest in these meetings. We're all doing our darndest, but we need your help. Lastly, we're continuing to fight the rate increases by participating and objecting to the PUC. As I said, the City of Ojai, for the first time I'm aware of, has become an official intervener in the latest rate case. They're sending information up there. The city is spending its resources trying to fight the rate increases more than maybe ever. But we need your letters going to the PUC too. We need to fight those rate increases. One interesting aspect about eminent domain is when you value the system, and I'll get to exactly how that works later, this is what you need to know now. The more we fight the PUC and make the climate of rate increases more and more difficult and more volatile for them, for Golden State Water, the less the value of the system is worth. The more we do, the more we can help Casitas pay for it. I'm telling you, it works. It matters. We need your help doing it. And if we don't end up buying it, hey, getting a lower rate increase isn't exactly a bad deal either. It's a win-win. You got to get the letters out. You got to start writing them. You got to give us the help we need. We are opting out of the PUC system. All right, so that gets me to this. This is my legal portion of the thing. Quick little understanding of what eminent domain is. As I told you, it's also called condemnation. It's pretty straightforward. It's not very complicated. But the one thing you should take is that there's groups, and I know one has sent a mailer to the city of Ojai, that eminent domain is a horrible thing. It's bad. Well, eminent domain can be bad, depending on how you feel about certain things. If they go and rip up a church to put in a Walmart, well, that may not be legal in eminent domain, but if they're doing something like that, or they're pulling out inner city stuff to put in a mall, that's one thing that's happening. For some of those abuses I agree with, but this is not that situation. First, there's a right to take hearing, okay? Public findings are made by a government agency, creating a rebuttable presumption that that agency can acquire the system. There's not really a lot to know here other than that's the way it works. In our situation, we believe that there is no legal hurdle here, that we have a clear right to take for multiple reasons, but most importantly, and I'll get to, is that when Golden State Water decided to sign up with the city of Ojai many years ago, in the contract they signed, it specifically stated any government agency can eminent domain the system back whenever they want to. So if you hear anybody saying this is eminent domain abuse, or you hear Golden State Water crying foul as their attorney, who's like $700 an hour from Tennessee, said, we had no idea we needed a threat like this. That threat is written in the contract. It's literally there where they signed it. So trying to say this is a threat, you entered into a contract that said we're going to take it back this way if we want to. What kind of threat is that? That sounds like a risk of doing business that way. But that's the way they want to characterize it. So first there's the right to take. Not a lot there you really need to know about. A much more important phase, and Richard will be touching on some of this in a little bit, is the valuation hearing. The value of the system is determined through expert analysis and appraisal of the system. Golden State Water is entitled to fair market value for the system. Joe Connor, their attorney who came to town, told us many times we agreed with that, and we said it was the wrong number. Look, we assessed the numbers the way we did, and we believe that in this case the rate base is a fair example of around-ish where the valuation should be. There are a million factors that go into it. We do not have that completely done, but as Richard's going to tell you a little later, the drivers that increase the valuation over what you wanted it to be and cause it to be a bad deal, we've analyzed those and they are not here. There is not a substantial amount of money in value in their water rights, and there's not a substantial value in their real property. Felton, as someone came up and asked me earlier, is Felton different? Felton was a lot different. Felton had 250 acres of land along with it, and there were some water rights issues that were a little bit different. In our situation, those drivers that exist that sometimes pop up the value aren't there. So what is eminent domain? So if Golden State Water wishes to sell, they can at any point. This is one aspect when Connor came, the attorney for Golden State came and wanted to tell everybody what eminent domain was. He forgot this one major point. Golden State, if they want to sell, they can sell at any point. It's their control over whether or not this becomes a lengthy and costly legal process. At any point, they can decide that they just want to get the best value they can without making us pay a bunch of attorney's fees to go through the eminent domain process. Now, in Felton, now I want to make sure I explain this. In Felton, the company who was the water purveyor there was called Cal-Am. It's a different company than Golden State Water. I don't want you to confuse the two. However, the attorney for Golden State Water is the same attorney who Cal-Am had. So even though they're two different companies, they're playing from the same playbook, and they literally got the same guy from Tennessee. In Felton, just as what they did in Ojai a week ago, they started out by saying, it ain't for sale. It ain't for sale. They love that. It's not for sale. We're not selling it. They said it to the Ojai Valley News. They said it at their meeting. They love that. It ain't for sale, guys. Well, but before the right to take phase in Felton, they stipulated that it could be taken. They gave up. Right before they were about to go to court. After all that saying it's not for sale, you guys can't take it, day before, all right, you guys can have it. Next, they said, but the valuation, we might say you can take it, but we're not agreeing on the valuation. They said, our appraisal is right and yours is wrong. Our appraisal says it's worth $25 million, we're right. But the day before valuation, they decided to enter into mediation. They did not go to court. And rather than take the $25 million that they appraised it at, they settled for 13. 13 from 25. After all of that bravado, arguing, in your face, it's not for sale, it's $25 million, take it or leave it. When they finally got there and push came to shove, $13 million. $13 million. They attacked our proposal, our feasibility study, for not having a professional appraiser do it. I'm glad we didn't get theirs because he was off by about double. That is a big difference. I don't know what kind of professional appraisal that is, but I know this. When you buy a house, what happens? The seller gets an appraisal that's high, the seller gets it that's low. It happens all the time. The appraisal value doesn't make a ton of difference. What matters is where this thing's going to get valued through the process. So when they tell you we valued it all wrong, of course they're going to say that. They valued the last one of these at twice what it was worth. There is no exact answer to it. It's very, very complicated. I have studied the issue of the valuation and how exactly it works, and I can tell you that there are multiple things that go into it. Richard's going to touch on a little bit, but the long and short of it is, this system is not priced out of our range. It is still within a complete feasible amount to get this done and decrease your water rates immediately. Worst case scenario, if even possible, and I mean if we take numbers that are all the worst case scenarios for the most part, maybe we're paying a hair more, but I can tell you this, Richard's going to show you a great slide in a little bit. The projected amounts because of rate increases go up so substantially that if you take it in 10 or 15 years, we're not talking about any less. We're talking about saving tens of millions of dollars. The valuation is never an exact science. We can't promise you exactly where it's going to be. But we know we're priced in. We know we're okay. The fundamentals, as I call them, price difference between the system you're going to and the system you're at, some of those factors I told you that drive the price up, all of those fundamentals we have studied and they are in our favor. They look good for this moving forward at all the correct amounts. I could go through all of them with you. It's not going to entertain anybody. Not that I'm entertaining anybody anyway. But if you want to know, ask us. We'll be happy to sit down and explain to you how all those factors work. But don't get scared when they tell you we're valued out, because the truth is, the fundamentals and the differences that are there, we are completely priced in. That brings me to my favorite point of this, is although they told us it's not for sale, really the negotiation has started. For those of you who don't know about negotiation, one thing you do is, if you see the NBA negotiations, you saw the NFL negotiations in the offseason, they love posturing. Posturing. Negotiation posture. We're not giving you anything, $0, we're not selling, we want to drive that price up. They came to Ojai, they hired a guy who maybe cost 30 to 50 grand to spend a whole week here. And he started out by telling us it's not for sale. What is that? That is a negotiation. That's their starting price. We don't care. Eminent domain makes no difference if they want to sell it. What are they trying to do? They know we're going to force their hand. They're trying to negotiate a higher price. How do you do that? You tell everybody, ooh, it's going to be expensive. Ooh, it's going to take forever. And ooh, it's going to cost you a bunch of money. Of course it is. It has in Felton. They want to tell us Felton was a bad deal. People of Felton disagree. I invite you all, by the way, if you haven't read it already, it's in the Ojai paper, there's copies of it in the back. Jim Graham, a member of Felton FLOW, who was involved in the takeover up there, he heard what Golden State Water was doing us down here and asked if he could write a letter on our behalf. If you don't believe me, take the word of the people in Felton that they're happier now. Golden State wants to tell you that Felton was a bad deal. We're telling you it wasn't. We don't matter. Ask the people in Felton. Get the letter, call somebody, send an email. They're all over the net. If you don't believe us, get it yourself. I'm telling you, find out for yourself. Don't buy their lies. So why eminent domain? This is real simple. Eminent domain condemnation is the only mechanism, this is it, other than them voluntarily selling, this is the only game in town. They agreed to it per contract. It is the only way for a government agency to take over the water system. Are we abusing it? It's the only option. There's no abuse. There's nothing wrong. They signed a contract that said it. This forces the sale of the Golden State water system in Ohio, regardless of the system not being for sale. And like I said, and I love it when they tell us it's such a threat. Eminent domain is such a threat. On our website, if you want to see it, you can also go down to City Hall and ask for a copy. The franchise agreement with the City of Ojai, which gives them the water purveyorship in town, says specifically any government agency, not just the City of Ojai, any government agency, which would include Casitas, has the right to eminent domain the system at any time. They signed it. They knew it was coming. So where are we now? Casitas has received our petitions and is currently reviewing the situation. They must do their due diligence before making any decision. We wouldn't expect any less of them. We are members of the Casitas district already. We do have a board member there. That's what we want them to do. This is a very big deal. This is not something you sleep on overnight and you decide on. This is something that takes weeks, months. We have been in meetings. We have helped get them in the information. I am aware that they are working extremely hard on looking every angle, turn over every rock. They're doing exactly what we want them to do. We did not expect them to jump up and down and go, we've been waiting for you to come by. We expected them to take their time and figure it out. But let's not stop pushing. We need to push them through the finish line. We need to remind them how important this is to us, how much behind it we are. We've got to get those letters to the Casitas board members. We've got to get everybody involved. Like I said, next time that question comes up, every hand is going up. All right? The City of Ojai has approved as of last night. It took a couple extra weeks, but we're very, very excited and thankful to the city for bringing in Jeff Oderman. Now, as I told you before, the Cal-Am attorney is working for Golden State on this. His name is John Connor. We wanted to secure the same attorney who Felton got. He's the guy who kicked Connor's butt. Oderman has been hired by the city with an exclusive, well, not exclusive, a specific language, and let me tell you, it's very specific. We took a couple extra weeks to make sure we got it done. That if he comes in and consults with the city a little bit to let them understand where they stand on the franchise agreement and some other issues, that he will also be able to work for Casitas if they decide to do that. We are hoping that they hire him at Casitas, but of course Casitas has every right to hire anyone they want. But we've given them as much as we can. We've said, here's a guy we think is great. We think he can get it done. I've talked with him personally on the phone. This guy knows what he's doing. He is better than Connor. And we got the better guy. All right? Now, woo! Lastly, and I'm going to ask Rob to come up here in just a second. Rob Clark, the city manager for the City of Ojai. The City of Ojai has become a formal protester and intervener in the current rate case before the PUC. And with that, I'm going to ask him to come up and just explain for a second, let everyone know what the city's up to and how wonderful they have been in support of this. They passed a resolution saying they wanted to see this get done. At every corner, they've helped us out. We owe a big round of applause to Rob, and on behalf of the city,
Well, thanks a lot. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'd also like to point out that a number of the city council members are here. The city council is very supportive of what FLOW is doing, and they have taken the actions that Ryan's talked about, asking Casitas to take this petition seriously and to do their due diligence. They've also hired the attorney, as Ryan mentioned, who will be advising the council on matters related to city water business and city water issues. The second point is that we are doing everything that we can, everything in our power, to try and protect the ratepayers within the community through the PUC process. But I've got to say that just because we've been able to become interveners doesn't mean we've been particularly successful in doing that. And I think Ryan's right. The PUC process is very difficult to access, even for a city government. And so we're doing what we can. The council's trying to protect you, but I think there are limits as to how effective we can be. So thank you very much.
Thank you again, Rob. And really, the city has made a wonderful move by starting the ball rolling, by getting some formal legal opinion, and we really do. We owe them a round of applause for what they've been able to do. Thank you. All right. And lastly, as I've stated a number of times, Ojai FLOW, the city of Ojai, and Casitas have met jointly multiple times to discuss various issues. The ball is moving. I've called it, we have a private track and a public track we're kind of on in Ojai FLOW. Publicly, this is it. This is us publicly. Privately, we've been busting our rear ends, meeting with people and trying to get all that information dispersed to all the individuals we needed to. And it's important, not just that we get them that information. I'll take care of that. It's important that the rest of you tell them what you want them to do with it. Like I said, we've got to get those letters out. We've got to get people involved. Now, with that, I'm going to bring up Richard Hages. He's going to talk to you about some of the specific Golden State claims that were made, how the evaluation of the system will work a little bit, and then we'll get to questions and answers. So Richard, please.
Thank you. How many people, if you raise your hands, how many people were at the meeting at Matilla where Mr. Connor made a presentation? Oh, good. Well, then you'll understand most of this. First of all, I'm not a licensed appraiser or a certified bond broker or any of those sort of things. I have a California driver's license. That's about it. But I have had 35 years experience in the water industry in California in a whole variety of areas. From when I first started at Casitas 35 years ago, I was in the business end of a shovel and left as assistant manager 20 years ago. But I've also managed multi-million-dollar construction projects and managed the financing of those projects. So although I'm not a bond expert, I do have some familiarity with how it works. When we got started with this, we got together and we were asking ourselves some very serious basic questions. Everyone was upset, everyone wanted to do something, but we had to decide how we were going to do this and if we could do it. And the plan that we put together basically answered those questions. The plan isn't etched in stone, and our intention never was to hand it over to Casitas and have them do it exactly the way it was written. It's a starting point. It's something to build on, and we're hoping that that's what it'll be used for. Anyway, those are the questions that the proposed plan addressed. At the meeting in Matilla, Golden State Water made some claims about our plan. Basically that our estimate wasn't any good, the financing plan was flawed, and that there would be no net savings after we did all this work. There are three basic ways to evaluate the system. There's a cost approach, an income approach, and a market approach. Those are the methods that Mr. O'Connor went over, and it's pretty much the methods that we used. In the cost approach is probably the one that we relied on the most because there's a lot of numbers that Golden State actually provides us through their reporting process. So we know that those are accurate. The thing that we have to remember in evaluating this system is Golden State, like any other PUC-regulated water agency, water company, is not a typical company. It operates under the limitations of the PUC, and it also operates under their protection, so it's much different. They operate a system in a business at very low risk to their investment, almost no risk. They're pretty much guaranteed a return on every dime they put in it. If you look at the cost of operations and maintenance, all of their cost of operations and maintenance is recuperated through our rates. The cost of building most of the system in Ojai was not paid for by Golden State. If you live in a community, pretty much most of the communities built after World War II, those were put in by developers who subdivided the properties, put in the streets, put in the water lines, put in the drainage, put in the power and the gas, and the water lines are then dedicated to Golden State. It's given to them, and it's connected to their system. That's the way almost all public utilities operate. Golden State then has to operate and maintain those systems, but they have no capital investment in them whatsoever. you pretty much bought that pipeline in front of your house when you bought your house. The investment that Golden State currently has in the existing system is about $19.2 million. That's how much actual capital they put into the system, well, since 1929, but a lot of those facilities are gone. But this is the current system that operates, that they've paid for. Improvements, replacements, those type of things. They recuperate that investment at about 4% per year through the rates. So when they invest money into the system, we pay them back at about 4% per year through the rates. They currently have recuperated about $4.3 million of the original $19.2 million investment. So the balance of unrecovered capital investment by Golden State is $14.9 million. So theoretically, we could write them a check for $14.9 million and we'd be even. They wouldn't be out any capital, and we'd have a system. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. The income approach to determining the value is again based on a typical company. Golden State, again, is not a typical company. It's regulated by the PUC. If it were a hot dog stand, it would be a lot easier to understand how the income approach works. A guy with a hot dog stand almost has no capital invested in his operation, but his profitability may be extremely high. He may have a great location, and he may be able to make an enormous amount of money with a limited amount of investment, and that will make that hot dog stand very valuable. Golden State's profits, they're authorized to make 8.9% return on the balance of the unrecovered investment. So that $14.9 million that's unrecovered, that's invested in the system, we're basically paying, or they're allowed to be paid, up to 8.9% return on that investment. And that is their profit. Everything else is pretty much a wash. But from a value approach, Golden State has not been able to achieve their authorized return on investment for at least the last 6 years that I examined. Their average has been about 5.6%, about $700,000 a year. They're actually authorized to have a profit of about $1.25 million, but they have not been able to achieve that. So their value as far as on income is relatively limited. The PUC regulates how much they can make. They can't go out and expand their business. They can't get into the telephone business or the gas business. The hot dog guy can always sell hamburgers and French fries, but they can't do that, so they're very limited. So however, they may be entitled to some compensation for the loss of that profit for some period of time after it's sold, to give them time to reinvest their $14.9 million into some other investment. Now the market approach is the most contentious of all, and this is the one Mr. Connor, I think, likes the most because it's really soft. There's not a lot of numbers out there. And again, this isn't a hot dog stand. This isn't something that you can go out and find 5 hot dog stands and see how much they sold for in the last 5 years. It's very difficult to find a water company like Golden State's system in Ojai that has sold recently so that you can get a comparison. The market value of the enterprise, like the hot dog stand, again, is very limited. There's very limited growth potential to Golden State. Population here isn't growing. It's a highly regulated environment, not only from the rate standpoint, but from the health department standpoint. The average annual profits are low, and then they have a rather hostile customer base. The appraised value of the system and comparable sales, again, is very difficult. There's no real numbers that we can use. Mr. Connor talked about going up and digging up the street and cutting out pieces of pipe and taking a look at how corroded they are, or how much of the flow is being restricted and all that sort of thing. That doesn't happen very often. That's really going to an extreme, and I don't know how much we would learn that would devalue the system from doing that. If we went into some of the older parts of town, some of those pipes are in really bad shape. So I don't know how excited Golden State is going to be to do that. But trying to put a value on it that way is very difficult because, as Mr. Connor said, this system has one use. It can't be used for anything else except deliver water in the city of Ojai. You can't pack it up, take it anyplace else. You can't convert it to a gas system. It has only one purpose. You can't divide it up. You can't sell all the fire hydrants and then sell off pieces of other pieces of equipment. It's a system, a package. So it'll have to be purchased as a package, as an enterprise. You'll have to look at how much money you can make at it. So there's a variety of things that are going to have to be considered besides the replacement value or the appraised value of the system itself. The other item is the appraised value of real property, like in Felton, Ryan brought up. They had 250 acres of timberland. That was a big issue up there. Here, Golden State does own real property. Some of that property could potentially be retired from the water side of things. It's surplused out for sale, and there is a market value for real property, and there's plenty of people that can appraise that and come up with a value. So that may be an additional cost. However, they don't have that many parcels, and they're relatively small. They believe they have a water right. They have somewhat of a water right, if you use the term loosely, but the fact is they have no particular allocation for water. They have no allocation from the State Water Resources Control Board. There's no allocation from the Groundwater Management Agency. It's an unadjudicated water basin, and the water that they pump is used here in the city of Ojai. They can't use it anywhere else. They can't pack it up. It's just like the system. They can't pack it up and take it with them. So it is part of the system, and although there may be some value to the fact that it's a pretty nice supply, there's no marketable water right that they own. Now, the only comparable sale that we have, there's two of them. One that Mr. Connor brought up that's in Montara, California. It's up near the Russian River, I think. I've never heard of it before, but it's a small little community. And the other, of course, is Felton. Because there are not very many comparables, it makes it very difficult to use market value. Here's an example in Felton that Ryan talked about a little bit. They went all the way to the point where they were in court. Both sides claimed that they had the system appraised. I seriously doubt that they went through an appraisal like Mr. Connor talked about. My guess is if you look at Felton's appraisal, they took the rate base, which was around $5 million. They probably got someone to appraise the 250 acres at about $2.25 and came up with $7.5 million appraisal. On the other side, Golden State used some number and multiplied it times some number. I mean, that's pretty much what they did. They've heard the times 5, you know, and it's not just them. I mean, that's pretty common. Well, you take this and you multiply it times 5. And they came up with $25 million. They sold it for about 13. Again, it's part of the appraisals are part of the negotiating process. You're not, like Ryan said, you're not going to start out at the bottom if you're the seller, and you're not going to start at the top if you're the buyer. And this is pretty much was a negotiation between the two. The purchase price of the Montara Water District was in 2003 was about $11 million, and it was about 3/4 the size of Felton. I don't really have any more details than that. They did pass a $20 million bond to buy it, and the bond passed by 82% of the vote, so apparently they were happy with what they got. Financing the buyout, again, is one of the things we were trying to look at. How could we do that? The plan that we put together is deliberately conservative. There isn't a number that you can pick out there and decide that's exactly how much it's going to cost, and this is exactly how we're going to pay for it. There has to be room to negotiate. There has to be room to plan for changes in the environment. I mean, we wrote this plan over a year ago, so it's already dated. So there's going to be changes. But the buyout, based on the three market cost and income approach, we believe the cost of buying the system is going to be somewhere between 17 and about $30 million. That includes the legal cost of acquisition. The longer it takes, the more that'll cost. It does include some amount of money for real property. It does include some amount of money for lost income, and it includes what we believe is a fair value for the system itself, which is a base rate. Our ability to pay for this, we can determine that by the difference between Casitas' rates and Golden State's. When we first started looking at this, it wasn't just Casitas. We looked at Ventura River, we looked at Miners Oaks. All of the rates were significantly lower than Golden State, which gives us what we need to make this work. The difference right now is about over $3 million is the difference between what Casitas charges for the same service we get from Golden State. So that's money that we can use to fund this buyout. The other source of a small amount of revenue is we believe there's a significant difference between what it costs Golden State to operate the system and what it will cost Casitas to operate the system. So much so that we think even with the system as is, Casitas will be able to save $350,000 a year over the current costs. And that's dealing with 135 leaks a year. Basically, we can afford $3.5 million a year. So we can afford to buy this with a funding of up to $3.5 million a year. That's a lot of room for negotiation, and that was the point of the plan. Now the financing costs, the agency I used to manage in Camarillo, California, just recently did a bonding of $9.3 million. Those are revenue bonds secured by water rates, and in September of 2011. And they got a rate of about 3.9% on those bonds, which isn't surprising considering today's interest rates. Now, there are other costs in issuing bonds. It's not just the cost. It's just like when you refinance your house or buy a house and you get a mortgage. You know, you borrow $100,000 and by the time you're done, it's $110,000 because of all the fees that you have to pay in order to borrow the money, go through escrow, and all those sort of things. It's the same thing with bonds. There's some significant costs of borrowing money. At Camarosa, what they were looking for is $8.6 million. So they got $8.6 million in proceeds. It cost them about $130,000 to do the issuance. They have to have a reserve fund to secure the last payment on the loan. Anyway, when it came down to it, the actual interest rate, when that's all done, it's like when you hear them advertise interest rates, they'll tell you it's 3.5%, but the APR is 4.5%. Well, in this case, the APR was 4.28. So that was the actual cost of that bond. So we're looking at having enough revenue annually to pay $3.5 million per year. According to the plan, we could finance $33 million in bonds, financed at 5% for 30 years. The annual debt service would be about a little over $2 million a year, and we would secure that with a surcharge on all water use of $2.50. That would leave us with a balance from the $3.5 million of about $1.33 million per year. That's money that gives us room to negotiate. It's money that gives us room to make repairs that are needed after we take over the system, and it gives us room to lower the rates. So there's a lot of fluff in this plan. We knew that we couldn't nail all these numbers down. There was too many things moving around, but there's significant amount of money to pay for this. I think we've done a fair job in trying to estimate the value of it. So yes, we believe we can afford it, and yes, we have a way to pay for it. Now the results of that, the potential savings are what are really significant. If we go with the plan and use it exactly the way it's been written, we will save $1 million a year the first year collectively as a community. In 15 years, we'll save $32 million. But worst case, even if we have to take over the system and it costs us the same as it costs us today, in 15 years, we're going to be saving $18 million a year. So no matter what we do, we're going to be chasing that cost of water that Golden State continues to increase. And the method of projecting Golden State's rates in 15 years from now was very conservative. When you think that they have a plan to invest $27 million into the system over the next 15 years, and they're authorized to recuperate 4%, nearly 4% out of that a year in principal, and 8 to 10% per year in interest, just the cost of their capital projects is going to increase our total rates over $3.5 million. That doesn't count their normal increases in operations costs and inflation. So this is a very conservative projection. This plan is on our website. It's for everybody to read. I encourage you to read it, and if you get out a calculator and check it and find out if you can find any errors, the more people that read it, the better. The more people that check it, the better. And like I said, it's a year old. Some things have changed, but the basics, I think, are still pretty true. And if you have any questions about it, if you read it and you find something wrong and you want to argue with me, I'm happy to do that, because we need to have that discussion. I don't want to be the guy that 20 years from now they say, well, that Richard Hayes is the guy that wrote that dumb plan and we wound up buying this system. So I want you to participate in this too. I have pretty good confidence in the fact that it's factual. All the numbers we use, all the sources. Bob Daddy was like a bulldog trying to get information out of the PUC in Golden State, and he gave me piles and piles of information that this is based on. So we feel good that the information is accurate and the assumptions are reasonable. Anyway, thank you very much, and if you have any questions about this, I can help Brian answer them after we're finished.
All right, this is my favorite slide, because we're not talking in here about trying to save money next week or next year or even the year after that. We are talking about being on the precipice of a huge financial disaster over the next 15 years in this community unless we do something now. This problem gets worse. What Richard also did mention is that these projections aren't based off of one large rate increase or a couple years where it's out of the norm. These are taking the average increases over 20 years and projecting them out 15. And you get $32 million. 32 million. Golden State plans on dumping more and more and more money into the system. That cost of service I was talking about before is accelerating, not decelerating. The rate increases you're worried about are going to get higher. They're going to get worse. They've already told us that. Although they haven't applied for the rates yet, they're telling us they're putting more money in. The more money they put in, the more they get out. This slide here is the future of Ojai and whether or not a business can still sustain itself at the arcade, anywhere else in there, everywhere. I mean, in a couple years, well, in 15 years, no question, if we let it go as it is, the few people in Ojai over in the Vaughn shopping area that aren't on Golden State Water are going to have businesses that are absolutely inequitable compared to the competition who's trying to do business at the arcade. The amount of money you're talking about is substantial. If you take it over time, we can't wait. This is your future, this is your children's future, this is the future of Ojai, and it's at stake if we don't start moving. $32 million is a lot of money. As Richard said, we are evaporating $3.5 million out of this community right now for no other reason than some city council a long time ago decided Golden State Water was a better deal. It takes a lot more work to get it changed than it did to start it at the beginning, but we've got to do it. Ojai will no longer exist except for cactuses and tumbleweeds. If we don't, well, except for the Bond Shopping Center will have huge trees and it'll look great, but everywhere else in town that's got to pay these rates are going to get killed. Already, realtors are coming up to me saying, I feel like I got to tell people if their house is in Golden State Water District, it's just not worth as much potentially as it is if you're in another part of town. Business owners are saying, what are we going to do? I can't compete. My laundromat's on the opposite side of town as another laundromat, and that laundromat, they don't have Golden State Water. It is unfair, it is unequitable, and we are only seeing the tip of this problem if we don't do anything. That's why we're here. That's why we're working so hard, and that's why we're begging you to get involved. Everybody's got to show up and do something on this one, or we are going to be the top line. And ladies and gentlemen, for the top line, we're bet. All right, that gets me to our last part, and then we're going to take questions, all right? And this is the call to action that I know you've all been waiting for. I've said it all night. I'll keep saying it. I will continue to say it. We're all going to keep saying it. We need your help. We are getting things done. We are out there pounding the pavement. We are trying everything we can, but we know it's never going to be enough. Everybody has to get involved. Number one, we are working on borrowed money. The money that paid for this tonight has been donated and borrowed. We need donations. I hate standing up here and begging for money on an issue that's supposed to save us a bunch of money, but it's a good investment, trust me. If we can get this done, you're going to save a lot more money than you're ever going to give to us. We don't have any overhead. We are all volunteers. We haven't spent $1 on any of us. We make signs, we make brochures, we make stickers, we rent rooms, we do all that, and we get nothing. We need you to keep giving us money so we can keep stuff moving, so we can keep stuff cracking, and keep all the attention out there. And trust me, Golden State Water is spending a lot more than we are. We have not put an attorney up for a whole week in the city of Ojai. I don't know where it was staying, but I'm guessing it was somewhere nice. We don't have that kind of money. They do. Well, we don't need to match them dollar for dollar. We have more than that in people and spirit, but we do need some. So as much as I hate saying it, don't forget to hit the donation box on the way out. All right? Next, signs. You guys have been doing a wonderful job. How about the city of Ojai having signs for Ojai FLOW, covering it all over the place? We told everybody last month, your sign gets taken down. Call us right away. We've been getting emails. People's sign disappears. We got one up in less than 24 hours. Your sign disappears. Call us, email us. We'll get another one up. The signs are going to be there forever until this is done. We're going to cover the city in them. Thank you for your support on that, really. We need more signs and businesses, but I got to say, the outpouring of people asking me for signs, asking our group for signs, and putting them up is amazing. Thank you for that. Keep it up, and make sure that neighbor who doesn't have one gets one up. All right? Next, community organization. This phase of what we're doing, we are trying to get more community involvement. It's always difficult because we got 7 people who do a lot of stuff and have a job full-time, most of us. But we need some people to have community parties. I know people have come up to me and asked me before. Come up to the booth in the back, call us, email us, do whatever you want. Get in touch with us. If you will host an event, have some people in your neighborhood around, your PTA group, the soccer team, whoever it is, we'll make sure we send somebody out. We'll get you some signs. We'll get you whatever you need. Let us know. We want to help you do that. But you got to start planning it. Those events are key to keeping everybody involved and interested. We're asking for your help on that. Email list. Look, a lot of you people are already on our email list. If you're not sure, get on it, sign up again. You won't get doubled up, I promise. Open your emails. We have a thing that tracks how many are opened. I'm not liking the percentages I saw the last 2 times, so we need you to make sure you open them. I'm sorry if we send you too many. Get them out of the spam folder, open it, read it for 5 seconds, close it, let us know you're involved in looking at it. We need you to do that. If you're not on the list, make sure you get on the list. Lastly, letters. I want you all saying that when you go on tonight. Letters. Love letters, angry letters, whatever letter you want to send. If it's got a heart on the top or it's got a skull and crossbones, I don't care. Send them to the PUC, send them to Casitas, send them to every other politician you can. Right now on our website, we put up a resources list that has all the politicians who are involved in this sort of thing. The numbers and names for people at Casitas, the people on the city council in Ojai, the people at the PUC, Strickland, state senators, state assemblymen, everybody. We got them all on there. Make one, copy it. Everybody's got a machine, copy it, sign it 5 times. I'll tell you what, if you need us to send a letter, you bring me a letter, I'll make sure it gets a stamp on it, we'll send it up ourselves. There's also email. Email's great, but I'm telling you, politicians hate to love to see letters that are signed by people. They know you actually took some time out of your life to do it. We got to get letters out. That's something you can all go home tonight, tomorrow. Do it. It takes 10 minutes. We have some templates on the website. Get the letters out. Those make a difference, I'm telling you. If you send one to the public advisor's office, all that information on the website, the public advisor has to, that's at the Public Utilities Commission, the public advisor has to make copies for the judge advocate who's running the case, for all of the commissioners who are running the case, for all the individuals who are interveners in the case. All of those get copied. You send them one, it goes out to everybody. It's a big deal. It's a big, big deal. You gotta do it. Not enough hands came up when I asked that earlier, and there's plenty of people who are involved. If you don't know how, ask them. If you're not sure who to ask, go on our website. I'm telling you, it's so easy. That's how we get it done. All right? Donations, we operate on borrowed money. We need as much as we can get. Like I said, we have no overhead. Signs, you guys are doing a great job. Keep spreading the word. Brochures, we have some brochures. If you have any information or you want to be able to talk to people, if there's any ideas you weren't sure about tonight, the brochures have a lot of it in there. Read that, take them with you. We got plenty, hand them out if you need to. If you're going to some event or you're going to something, take them with you, hand them out to people. Community organization, as I said, we've got to start the community parties. I'd like it if we got maybe 10 people tonight to volunteer to do that. Ask somebody at the back, that would be great. We need community involvement. Enough telling everybody what we're doing. We want you telling us what you're doing. Okay? And the letter writing campaign. I have to bring it up again. Letter writing is still the most influential way to communicate with politicians. People don't always understand that. It is the truth. More letters come in with signatures and stamps, hard copies, sent to politicians. They respect that. I know somebody in here has written a letter when their favorite show went off the air. Well, it's time to do it for something else. All right? Now, as it says up there, it's the best way to communicate with politicians. At a few different ways I can say this, of course, unless you are a lobbyist. If you are a lobbyist, don't write a letter, come talk to me. We need your help. We'll get you a staff badge and everything. We need as many lobbyists as we can get. Unfortunately, I doubt there are many in here. So if you're not a lobbyist or you have some other way to talk to politicians, send them the letter. We need donations, we need letters. All the information's on the website. Everybody make sure you're doing that over the next week, the next day. We need them as soon as we can. And that is it for me. So for now, we're going to ask anybody to start coming up and asking questions. Like I said, we're going to encourage people to come down over here, step up to the microphone. We'd like it, if possible, state your name, where you're from. I assume most people are from the city, but if you're not, we'd like to know. And we need as many questions, and we'll be here as long as you guys want.
Hi, I'm Kathy Richards, and I was wondering if you could address what's in it for the rest of Casitas if this buyout goes through. We've heard about what's in it for the citizens in Ojai in the Golden State system. I'd like to know about the rest of the Casitas district because that would be influencing what the directors representing those people would be considering.
Absolutely. That is first of all, it's a great question. I will say, for anybody who's in the back, we appreciate it. Just keep it down and try and listen. There are going to be, I'm sure, some good questions. That is a wonderful point you bring up. We actually have some literature that we put together about the benefits to the Casitas district as a whole. Some of the specifics are adding this size customer base to the Casitas purveyorship adds a lot more stability to their system overall. And really the biggest factor that helps by adding this many more ratepayers to their system is really the ability, should there be any catastrophic incident with the reservoir, like an earthquake or something, to be able to cover some of those costs with a larger customer base. Now, of course, that's something you can't plan for or expect, but it's a huge benefit to the remainder of the Casitas district because of that. The other ones are, believe it or not, as weird as this is, some of the costs of service can actually be reduced for the other areas by including this area as part of their system. Because already, and it was hilarious, I was actually driving the other day, and I was on Ojai Avenue, and there was a Golden State water truck turning left, and in front of me was a Casitas truck. And I thought it was really neat. The Casitas guy rolled down his window and waved, and the Golden State guy waved back. Well, it partly is because Casitas operates the reservoir, but they sell water all the way on the east end of Ojai, and they also sell it to Ventura. Well, some of that system can actually be efficientized to make it less expensive by having the system all under one individual entity. So there's that. Additionally to that, there are various other benefits that really get into more of the inner workings of how the two systems work. And for that, I would tell Richard, and as I say that, Richard's showing me a note. And he said one specifically is the schools. You may not live in the city, but that's a really good point. Thank you, Richard. Is even if you don't live in the city, although it not necessarily helping the other Casitas customers, but if you are a Casitas customer, that's good. But if you aren't necessarily a resident of Ojai, the cost that we project savings to the school district in Ojai is very substantial. Tens and tens of thousands of dollars a year. I believe it's in the neighborhood of 25, is that right? Yeah, it's $1.25 million over 15 years is our projection. And that's being, again, conservative with some of the numbers. The Ojai School District pays an arm and a leg for water. So what did the school board do? And as I'm here, and I've said so much about the city council and other things, the school board did the same thing. They were very proactive and very supportive. They came out and passed a resolution that said they want Casitas to look into this. If it's feasible, they want them to do it. They are interested in seeing the water purveyorship in Ojai change, because just on them, and there's a lot of members of our community who don't live in the city, yet their children do attend Ojai Unified Schools. $1.25 million over 15 years. A school can do a lot with that. I mean, the Ojai Educational Foundation raises not nearly that much money annually, and they do tons with it. They do an amazing job getting grants to students. That much money over that period of time can do a lot, and that would be one of the bigger ones. Richard, anything else? Right, and of course, and that's one we've already mentioned. $32 million over the 15 years obviously is going to stay in the community versus going outside. That money is going to get spent and recycled through Ojai and through the surrounding community to a much higher extent than it is when it gets, essentially, I call it evaporated. It goes to the absentee landlord corporation.
Hi, my name is Rachel Pratt, and I'm not a Golden State Water customer. I live in Oakview. But before I ask an actual question, I just want to remind you all who are fighting this, very inequitable increase in rates, that what you are doing is a much bigger thing than just saving yourself some money, which of course, you want to, you need to. But you are joining a growing movement of communities over the country that are taking back their rights to their own local resources and fighting the privatization, the corporatization of their communities and their regions. So I really encourage you to keep doing this, and I will do what I can help because I'm concerned about this whole issue. And just in addition, if you are concerned about the privatization of water and not just saving yourself some money, you might want to consider no longer buying bottled water, because that's privately sold water. That's the privatization of water when they bottle it and ship it to you. My question is, in terms of the buyout, the buyout would be secured by a water surcharge of $2.50 per unit of water. I think when I pay for my water, the units are gallons. Is that what you consider a unit? I mean, right. $2.50 a unit, like, whoo, that's not going to work.
Well, no problem. That's a good question. We didn't want to get too detailed in the minutia of some of what the proposal is, but the answer to this is very simple. Every water company does it in units. Those units are equal to one CCF, which is 748 gallons of water. So one unit is 748 gallons of water. CCF, I think, is it's like a cubic foot of water, 100 cubic foot of water, I think it is. I go by the gallon. It's 748 gallons. So that is it. It's $2.50 is our proposed surcharge. And this brings up a point I want to make sure is clear for everybody who's left. We did not draw this plan in stone. It did not come from Moses. It did not happen in a burning bush. We came together and put the best proposal forward we could. We understand that there's certain parts of it that may be pragmatic and others that may not, certain things that may need to be tweaked. One specific one that you brought up is the $2.50 surcharge. We looked at what the most equitable and efficient way to get the money back was. We figured the best way was just like when you go to the pump. When you go get gas, whatever you take out, you pay for it. What you don't take out, you don't pay for. We figured, hey, why stagger it any other way? The more water you use, the more you pay the surcharge. The less water you use, the less. But we also understand that that may not be as simple as we thought it would, and there are some other options. And the bonding scheme, there are multiple options, and that's one that may or may not be an issue that comes up later. And to give you an idea, the possibility, and we just have to get there, of it happening another way with an upfront type of property tax, or whether it's revenue-based like we suggested with surcharges, or whether it's something called a standby charge, which can be based on the size of your property, the size of your meter, or other variables. All of those are options that are on the table. So let me make this clear. The surcharge is one option we came up with. When it comes to Casitas' decision, they may be wanting something else. At that point, it'll be our job to make sure you understand what's different about their new proposal.
My name is Rob Weiss. I'm a Casitas Water District disgruntled customer and resident of Ojai. I was wondering, after many public appearances at the PUC meetings and letters to the PUC, and being very dissatisfied with no comment or no response to my inquiries, I became aware that I can protest any water bill. So for the last year or so, I've protested every water bill. I sent it back with a letter of protest, an explanation of my protest to the PUC. I've been told that I'm at no risk of sacrificing my water service to my family, and now I think I have 4 bills presently under protest with the PUC. They said that it can be anywhere from 3 to 4 months for that resolution to take place, and I would like everybody to do that. Is that an effective way of tying up Golden State's revenue, and does it send a message to the PUC what we want to do?
Well, first of all, Rob, thank you. Thank you. That's what we need, first of all. And I am aware of that, and yes, first of all, everyone who's here who is a ratepayer to Golden State has the option of becoming a protester, whether an informal protester or formal protester. You can send your water bill in, tell them you disagree with it, and you can request some sort of hearing on it. That is one way to disrupt them, but it doesn't. And again, this is the legal aspect of it. Yes, it's civil disobedience in a way. Yes, hey, if you don't know what your water bill is, send it in and make them explain it to you. But it also doesn't necessarily attack specifically the rate case that's going on. So as much as I would want to tell everyone to do that, I say I don't want to discourage anyone from doing that. But at the same time, when we say write letters, I don't want to get people confused. Don't just write a letter about protesting your own water bill. If you want to do that, do it. It's a great way to get involved. It's a great way to make them show up and have to explain why the heck you're getting charged what you are. But also you can intervene on the rate case, and that is the actual increase that they're proposing. And that's a little bit different than just talking about your own particular bill. I encourage everybody to do all of them. Our website deals with sending it to the Public Advisor's Office, which is about complaining about the rate case. But I would love to see everybody in here become a protester. I think everybody should. Everybody in here wants to protest now, but they just don't know how. I'll tell you what, I called the Public Utility Commission, I called the Public Advisor, they gave me the runaround, and I knew how to cut through their BS because I knew exactly what to say, and I still didn't get any help. Well, don't worry about that. Don't call the Public Advisor. You want to get involved? Call me. Call Ojai FLOW. We'll get you in, we'll tell you how to get it done, I'll put a stamp on your letter if you want. If you want to intervene, you want to protest, you want to do whatever, you call us, let us know, we'll get you involved.
Hi, my name is Doug Sachs. Is Casitas the only play in town? If they don't want to do it, is that the only government organization that could take over the water?
Well, another good question. And the answer to that is, kind of. The simple answer is, look, we have one plan. Our plan is still moving forward. Our plan has not changed. We know that Casitas is the most efficient and most likely and well-suited entity to take over the system. We did our analysis, we're certain of that. But that doesn't mean that they're the only game in town. And that doesn't mean that something down the road may change on opinion, or we may have to look at things differently. But my answer for now is this. There's one plan, and we're sticking to it. Casitas is ours. Casitas is the one we want. Thank you. All right, any other questions? Well, I got to tell you, you were way nicer to me than you were the attorney for Golden State. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming. Make sure you stop by the back. Say thank you to everybody. Thank you again to the Green Coalition, the Friends of Ventura River, and the others who helped us. Dr. Phelps, thank you again. Greatly appreciate it.